Welcome and good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for being here with us, whether you're joining us in the pews or online. I'm Alejandra Posada. I'll be the worship associate this morning. I currently serve this congregation as a member of the worship committee, the stewardship committee, and the social action council. Our pulpit guest today is Catherine Vance. Catherine is a candidate for UU ministry and the intern minister at the UU Fellowship of Galveston County. She is in the MDiv program at Iliff School of Theology in Denver and holds an MFA in creative writing from Washington University in St. Louis. Her novel, Mountains Under Her Feet, was published in 2023. She also works part-time for the UTMB hospital system as an interfaith chaplain. And Catherine informed me this morning that she will actually be the keynote speaker at an upcoming conference, the UU Southwest Women's Conference, which will take place here in Houston, March 21st to 23rd, in Clear Lake, actually, with the theme of sacred spaces and sacred places. So if you're interested in that, apparently their Facebook page is a good place to go to register, or I'm sure you could ask Catherine after the service and she could point you to that. So please join me in welcoming Catherine to Emerson this morning. Before we get formally started, we have a few announcements. Next Sunday, Reverend Ed is starting a multi-week religious education class for adults in our usual 10 a.m. Time slot for adult RE on Sundays. The course is called New Year, New You, and it will help you deepen your understanding of yourself based in an ancient Greek and Roman religion called Stoicism. You can find more details in the e-blast. The Finance Committee would like to ask you to remember your pledge to this place we call our spiritual home. In their words, we hope to finalize collection of 2024 pledges. If you haven't fulfilled your 2024 pledge quite yet, please do so. Emerson understands that our members expect to follow through with their pledge commitment, but situations may arise that are out of their control and compromise their ability to pay. For our planning purposes, please let us know if such a situation has arisen for you. Lunch bunch today will be at 12:15 at Chipotle, which is at 5706 San Felipe. This is an informal gathering for fellowship and to continue conversations. All are welcome to join in, and if you're still a little new around here, we'd especially like you to invite you to join as well. Between the service and lunch bunch, we will share coffee and conversation here in the gathering place just outside the sanctuary. And finally, we would especially like to welcome our visitors this morning. We are very happy you have chosen to include this place on your spiritual journey. You should have been handed a welcome packet when you arrived. If you did not, we're sorry for the oversight, and please feel free to ask for one as you exit the sanctuary this morning. The welcome kit contains a yellow card, just like the one in the seat back in the pew. If you fill it out, we'll put you on our twice-weekly mailing list. You're not going to have a barrage of emails coming at you, but our twice-weekly mailing list to keep you connected. So whenever you are ready to take that step, feel free to complete the card and leave it in one of the offering plates or the box. And welcome to Emerson. We're delighted that you are here. And now please enjoy our prelude as we formally begin our service.
Thank you so much for that awesome prelude. It just makes me want to just walk right out the door and go do something, not even stay here and preach today. But thank you so much for having me back. But now we transition into our sacred time together, a time of reverence, a time of attention, a time of intention. I invite you to join in this time marked by the lighting of our chalice flame, and I would like to invite Larry Hulbig to come forward and light the flame in the sanctuary. And I invite those of you at home to light a candle where you are to join us in spirit. We mark this sacred time with words, important words that bring us into a time of collective intention. And this morning and for the month of January, our chalice lighting words come from the 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, who died in December at the age of 100. So please join me in reading these words together as they appear on your screen. And since it's so short, let's say it twice. You just have to have a simple faith. One more time. Just have to have a simple faith. At this time, I'd also like to light an additional candle of remembrance to hold the victims of the California fires in our hearts. Many houses of worship there have also been burned, so let's think of them today.
Of faith, reason, and affection. We welcome all to grow in mind and spirit as we build a better world. We do this by gathering to seek, learn, and grow, and in the course of our work, to promote love among each other, our congregation, and the wider community here in Houston. Whether you're here in the sanctuary or joining us virtually, we welcome you. No matter where you are in your personal spiritual journey, we invite you to live, learn, love, and grow with us. As a covenantal community, we aspire to promote love, fellowship, and social justice, as well as support for your personal growth. Please join me in our welcoming. The words are on the screen. Whoever you are, wherever you come from, wherever you find yourself on your life's journey, whichever your pronouns, whether you've walked in or rolled in or dialed in, whomever you love, you are welcome here. And now we have our presentation of this week in UU history with Richard Cummins.
Thank you, Alejandra. For the week of January 6th through January 12th, two very significant items from 600 years of UU history. On January 6th, in 1878, Carl Sandburg was born in Galesburg, Illinois. He attended Lombard College, which later merged with Meadville Theological School. He served in the infantry during the Spanish-American War and later helped organize the Social Democratic Party of Wisconsin. Sandburg moved to Chicago in 1913, where Poetry magazine began to print his poems regularly. And in 1916, he published his first book, Chicago Poems. He became an editor at the Chicago Daily News while continuing to produce volumes of poetry for Cornhuskers in 1918. He won his first Pulitzer Prize for that. Sandburg traveled around America collecting and singing folk songs, many of which were published in the American Song Bag, 1927. In 1940, he won his second Pulitzer Prize for history for his biography of Abraham Lincoln. During World War II, Sandberg wrote a syndicated column for the Chicago Times. He also wrote introductions or narrations for several famous photographic collections. His complete poems, 1950, won him a third Pulitzer Prize. At the time of his death, Sandberg was a member of the Unitarian Church in Asheville, North Carolina. He died July 22, 1967. And on the 12th of January in 1737, John Hancock was born in Braintree, which is now Quincy, Massachusetts. Raised by a wealthy uncle in Boston, Hancock graduated from Harvard in 1754 and joined his uncle's mercantile business, which he inherited in 1764. A leading patriot, he opposed the Stamp Act, 1765, and other British commercial policies. In 1769, Hancock was elected to the Massachusetts General Court, and he was a delegate to the Continental Congress from 1775 to 1780, serving as president for the first 2 years. And he was the first delegate to sign the Declaration of Independence. In 1780, the people of Massachusetts elected Hancock governor. He resigned in 1785, was reelected in 1787, and served again until his death. He presided over the Massachusetts Convention to ratify the new Constitution in 1788, and he was a member of the Brattle Street Church, Unitarian, in Boston, and chair of the church's building committee in 1773. He died October 8, 1793. Sandberg and Hancock. Thank you. Alejandra?
Thank you, Richard. It is also important we acknowledge that our history in this place is a shared and often harmful one. Our congregation's buildings are situated on the homes of the Karankawa and the Atakapa peoples, who were here for at least 2,000 years before European settlers arrived and nearly brought about their end. May we recognize, uplift, and support Indigenous voices and communities in our work as a congregation. Each time we are gathered, we hear words from one of the 6 sources of Unitarian Universalism. Today's words come from William Stafford, an American poet and pacifist who lived from 1914 to 1993. Stafford wrote more than 60 books, including Traveling Through the Dark, which won the National Book Award in Poetry. His work explores the interconnectedness of everything. Today we read his poem, The Way It Is. And if I could just add on a personal note, Catherine selected this poem in keeping with the theme today. She had no idea this is actually one of my favorite poems back from the days when I was a teacher. So very happy to read it here with you all today. The way it is. There's a thread you follow. It goes among things that change, but it doesn't change. People wonder about what you are pursuing. You have to explain about the thread, but it is hard for others to see. While you hold it, you can't get lost. Tragedies happen, people get hurt or die, and you suffer and get old. Nothing you do can stop time's unfolding. You don't ever let go of the thread. And now, with our chalices lit and our hearts and minds centered, we often celebrate just a little more by singing a hymn. You may stand if you are comfortable doing so, or you may stay seated, but please help us raise our voices and sing. Our opening hymn is number 118 in the gray hymnal, This Little Light of Mine.
I'm So it's time for a story for all ages. I was a little taken aback when I'm Jill Rose, when Alejandra asked me if I would find a children's book about UU, Unitarian Universalist evangelism. Whoa. Well, so for those of you who are new to Unitarian Universalism, those two words are often abbreviated as UU, and so this abbreviation can either stand for Unitarian Universalism or Unitarian Universalists, but context informs the content. And 2 syllables are a whole lot shorter than 10, so I will use UU in both cases today. So, The Doorbell Rang by Pat Hutchins. If you read about this book, you will find that this story is a math lesson on simple division. What could a math book have to do with sharing our thread or UU evangelism? I'll give you an introductory hint. When my daughter started school at age 5 in England, one day she came home and said that on that day she had learned to share. I thought I'd been working on that for several years already. But it turned out that sharing was the way the school taught about the mathematical operation of division, even at that early age. A much more approachable concept than goes into or goes into, which is what I was taught about division at an early age, even though I did learn eventually how to divide, in spite of it. So sharing, it's a stretch, but as I read this book about sharing cookies, think about what this story might have to do with sharing our UU faith. Once again, I wish I could show you the pictures. I'm going to put this out on the table so you can look at them yourselves at coffee hour. I've made some cookies for tea, said Ma. Good, said Victoria and Sam. We're starving. Share them between yourselves, said Ma. I made plenty. Well, that's 6 each, said Sam and Victoria. They look as good as Grandma's, said Victoria. They smell as good as Grandma's, said Sam. No one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. It was Tom and Hannah from next door. Come in, said Ma. You can share the cookies. That's 3 each, said Sam and Victoria. They smell as good as your Grandma's, said Tom, and look as good, said Hannah. No one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, and the doorbell rang again. It was Peter and his little brother. Come in, Ma said. You can share the cookies. That's 2 each, said Victoria and Sam. They look as good as your Grandma's, said Peter, and smell as good. Nobody makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, and the doorbell rang again. It was Joy and Simon with their 4 cousins. Come in, said Ma. You can share the cookies. That's 1 each, said Sam and Victoria. They smell as good as your Grandma's, said Joy, and look as good, said Simon. No one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. And I will just show you this picture right quickly because it's got all the people around the table. And the doorbell rang. Oh dear, said Ma, as the children stared at the cookies on their plates. Perhaps you'd better eat them before we open the door. We'll wait, said Sam. It was Grandma with an enormous tray of cookies. How nice to have so many friends to share them with, said Grandma. It's a good thing I made a lot. And no one makes cookies like Grandma, said Ma, as the doorbell rang. So, sharing cookies and UU evangelism. Here are my conclusions, and perhaps you thought of some others as I read along. My first one is, some things are really desirable. In the book, it's cookies. For UUs, what's desirable is people and a place to find comfort and alignment, as described in the blurb about today's service, especially during current unsettling political climates. 2, people are willing to share. In the book, others literally get wind of the desirable good things, and those who have them are willing to share. Again, cookies. For UUs would happily let others know that a desirable religious organization exists and shares many of their goals and concerns. We have something we would like to share. 3, sharing can be problematic. In the book, the cookies are almost gone, and there may not be enough cookies. For UUs, we have a lot to share, but workable ideas on how to spread the words of welcome, inclusion, and action are missing. We don't know how to proselytize. And 4, outside sources can be helpful in solving a sharing problem. In the book, Grandma brings more cookies to share. For us, today Catherine Vance shares her thoughts on how UUs might find a way to share what we want to offer to searchers and what has been done successfully in the past. Albert Schweitzer said, "At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person." So might today's service rekindle our light to let us shine and share, and after the service, maybe eat a cookie or two in the gathering place.
Thank you, Jill. Each time we gather, we ask your help in fulfilling this church's mission. The success of this church and of the principles we support is made possible by the work of our members and friends and by your financial support. We honor that support by striving to live the mission of this place fully and wholeheartedly. Here at Emerson, this collection does not go to funding our work, which is funded through the pledges of our members. This collection each week goes to fund the important work of important partners of Emerson who, in our opinion, live out our Unitarian Universalist values in our community and in the world beyond our community. The act of giving our financial support is both a transformative spiritual act and one way we live our values. 75% of today's offering will go to our January Share the Plate recipient, Justice Forward, formerly the Harris County Drug Court. Justice Forward was actually founded as a social justice task force in 2003 by members of this church. It has changed its name and expanded its mission, but remains true to its purpose, which is to allow a middle way to keep people whose addictions lead them to commit nonviolent crimes out of prison by providing therapeutic rather than criminal justice system solutions. The remaining 25% of today's offering will go to Interfaith Ministries Meals on Wheels, which provides thousands of meals every day to Houston's homebound seniors. You can go to our webpage for online giving, put cash or a check in our offering plates and box, or mail a check to the church. During the offering music, children who want to attend their religious education class may follow Mackenzie to their classroom.
Beautiful, just beautiful. Our meditation this morning come from the words of poet Kathy's song. It's called This Wonderful Opportunity. So I'd like to invite you to just settle yourself in your seat in a comfortable position and to consider each section of words and then breathe as I ring the gong. May all beings seen and unseen be well, happy, and peaceful, including ourselves. May there be peace in the world, peace in our hearts, peace in our minds. May we use this wonderful opportunity of human life to awaken. May we be grateful for wisdom and compassion, this infinite boundlessness which surrounds us, waiting to be used by us to open our hearts and minds. How brief our lives, how dependent upon others we are. And so with each act we bring wholesomeness, humility, and the courage to do no harm, not least of all to ourselves. As we journey through this life, may we move deeper into insight and see things as they truly are in this wonderful opportunity to awaken. May we be grateful for teachers in all their guises who appear before us. May we love those who are hardest to love, including ourselves. May leaders who will work for the peace of the planet step forward, and may we support them. May our wish for peace spread like a mother's soothing hand and reach the distressed, fevered places of the world, and protect each child and give them the right to be fed, sheltered, and schooled, and the right to go to sleep without fear. May the path of forgiveness and acceptance be the path of peace, and may we find it. May we use this wonderful opportunity to awaken and together find true happiness, an open spaciousness without borders. Namaste and Amen. So the topic today is UU evangelism, for sure. I know that raises a lot of eyebrows, and I have no doubt that if someone were to ring the doorbell, that we would give them a UU cookie, as Jill's story said. The problem is that a lot of people just don't know what house to go to. They do not know where the doorbells are. So hear now the words of the Reverend Harry Joyner from his essay, The Bold Witness, and it's found in a book called Salted with Fire, which is full of essays about UU evangelism. The word evangelist carries extremely negative connotations for many of us. Some Unitarian Universalists think of evangelists as pushy zealots who sell religion on television or door to door. But is it possible that the only reason we think so poorly of evangelists is that next to nobody who thinks or feels as we do ever engages in the process of publicly sharing their faith? UUs are notoriously spiritually silent. Because we think for ourselves, are respectful of human difference, and don't appreciate it when someone tries to ram their beliefs down our throats, we tend to shy away from even cautiously sharing with others what we believe. But we cannot afford such a self-imposed silence in dangerous and divisive times such as these. If we remove ourselves from the religious playing field, then other messages will carry the day, and neither we nor humanity can afford that. So, let us be kind, gentle, respectful evangelists for that hopeful, inclusive human vision bequeathed to us by our forebears. The stakes are too high for anything less. As the late 18th century Universalist preacher John Murray put it, "Go into the highways and byways. Give the people something of your new vision. Uncover your light. Let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and understanding, more hope, courage, and kindness to the hearts and minds of all." Well, I grew up in Houston from the age of 10, but my own family roots are in the Appalachians, and I lived in Western North Carolina for many years as an adult. And when I was there, one of the things I did was teach a course in the literature of the region. And one of the books that I covered was Cold Mountain by Charles Frazier. You might remember it because it was made into a movie with Nicole Kidman and Jude Law. And it was about a Civil War soldier and his journey back to the woman that he loved after being injured in the war. Well, I bring this up because the book was loosely based on facts. And the thing that's interesting for our purposes is that the Nicole Kidman character, whose name was Ada, was the daughter of a Universalist preacher. And there really was a little Universalist enclave up in an isolated mountainous part of the Blue Ridge. And you'll see the picture of the little church on your order of service. It was no bigger than the foyer that's here. Well, I took my students there to visit. Inman's Chapel looks like a one-room schoolhouse, and it had a wooden ceiling that was painted sky blue, and there was a pot-belly stove in the middle of the room for warmth. And the basement was still full of antique hymnals published by Beacon Press. And in actuality, the church had been established in 1902, not during the Civil War, and it was managed by the Universalist Women's National Missionary Association. That's right, I said missionary. And it was really remarkable in its day because it existed as a hell-free island in a sea of fundamentalist thinking. You can only imagine, if you've ever been to those mountains, how dense they are, how remote and rural they are. And it was remarkable also because it had a female minister. Her name was Hannah Jewett Powell. And it was a place where white, black, and Native American congregants sat side by side. Well, I'm telling you this story because in these divisive times, and particularly with a new administration coming in just a week from now, I've begun to feel a little fiery about getting Unitarian Universalist ideas out there in places where you least expect them, in places where they are most needed. Recently, there was an editorial in the Washington Post that encouraged people to seek out UU churches for their grieving liberal souls. So why are we normally so quiet? Why do we continue to keep the good news of Unitarian Universalism so close to our chests? I actually have lots of predecessors who have already asked this question, because the book that I alluded to, Salted with Fire, which is about the topic of UU evangelism, it came out 30 years ago, and it's full of strategies and action steps for bringing UUism into a larger presence. More recently, I was glad to see an increased flurry of posts on the Southern Region Facebook page. We need to start seeing UUism as a set of values that so many communities and small towns want and need, a man named Roger wrote. Well, there are many reasons why we don't consistently share our personal faith stories or develop our elevator speeches about what UUism is. For sure, we don't want to do to others what we don't want done to ourselves. We don't want to start proselytizing and recruiting and trying to convert others to our way of thinking. Maybe we don't start a conversation because we believe we're too complex to explain unless we're sure someone has the background, the education, or the cultural perspective to understand it. Maybe, truth be known, we just like being part of a small elite group, and we don't feel a need to tell others about our club. We might worry that people will feel threatened, sometimes offer threat or rejecting rhetoric back at us. We just don't want to open that can of worms. And finally, it might even be that we're just a little bit lazy, just riding the status quo. Well, some of us will say, but I do share the good news of Unitarian Universalism to the world. I do it every day with love and acceptance. I show that to everyone I meet, regardless of their creed, their color, their stated gender, or sexual orientation. I do it by living our 7 principles, our values, by my consistent presence and involvement in social justice. Well, all that's great. It's a good way to be, to offer ourselves to society. But it doesn't always identify us. So think of it from the other person's perspective, their point of view. There are people out there right now, secular, atheist, former evangelicals, they are looking, they're struggling. They're people who might be saved years of searching if only they knew there was a liberal religion where they could feel free to be who they are. People who don't have a spiritual community but want one. I was one of those people. If only my favorite high school teacher had given me some clues, had even mentioned the words Unitarian Universalist. I ran into her years later, and we had become colleagues teaching at a university here in Texas, and she told me then that she was a UU and was a member of First UU in Houston. Well, I didn't find a UU church on my own until I was 40, but I had started looking for something that fit me better than mainline Christianity when I was 17. Well, there are 587 Baptist churches and 213 non-denominational churches in Houston alone. But there are only a little over 1,000 UU churches worldwide. I contacted the Southern Region Chalice Lighters and asked them to tell me about our newest UU churches. But a lot of congregation building work now is being done by crowdfunding sites, not by the UUA necessarily. In Texas, there are some newer congregations like the Fellowship in Abilene or El Paso, but they only have a handful of members. But if the Universalist Women's National Missionary Association could do it in a place like post-Civil War Rural Baptist Confederate Coal Mountain, North Carolina, it ought to be possible in a place like Houston to give witness to the good news that there is no hell, that you're good exactly as you are, no matter your history, your color, or orientation, and it's fine to believe in God or Allah or Gaia or something you call source or nothing at all. So I want to make it clear that I'm not talking about a campaign to amplify UU real estate and membership, although there are some who might be openly in favor of that. The growth of UU churches wouldn't be a direct goal of mine, but it might be a natural outcome from the joy of helping those who want to find a place to connect or who are actively looking for alternatives to what they grew up with. Because you know what we're starting to face, what is coming up so soon, the us and the them, politically, religiously. So let's not evangelize, but let's at least witness. People won't find out about youism until someone tells them, or shares a link to a sermon, or starts a podcast telling people about this creedless church where the worth and dignity of every person is respected, where people are encouraged to soul search and find their own free and responsible path to truth and meaning. When we intentionally share who we are, share how we affiliate as a congregation, and make it safe for people to ask us questions or encourage to come and visit, that's a way to change lives and heal this world. So recently I started working on my elevator speech. I chose this church because I wanted the freedom to be spiritual in a way that reflected what I knew inside of myself to be true. And because I learned so much from knowing others like you who are on their own personal journeys, defining your own beliefs and ideas about how you are connected to time and space and matter, the universe. If that resonates with others, I say let's tell them. Let's tell them about it. I was recently touched by a film called Come Sunday, and it's the story of Reverend Carlton Pearson, who was a minister of the fundamentalist Higher Dimensions Evangelical Center in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And he was a student of Oral Roberts, if you've ever heard of Oral Roberts, the iconic evangelist. Well, a very unusual thing happened to Carlton. In 1994, after watching a television program about the genocide in Rwanda, he had an epiphany. And he started thinking, is it really true that there is a hell? And he decided, no, there wasn't, because a loving God would not relegate his children to a fiery eternity just because they didn't believe in the same Jesus that he did. And so even though he was a minister, Carlton had never heard of Unitarian Universalism. He just knew from inside of himself that what he was thinking was true, and so he told his congregation about it. Well, half of them left with him, but half of them stayed. And so he had a split group, and the ones who agreed with him said that seemed true for them as well. And so in 2008, his hell-free, gay-friendly church was absorbed into the All Souls Unitarian Church in Tulsa, and this was where he preached for the rest of his life. And so while his story of personal epiphany is inspiring, wouldn't it have been great if he hadn't had to search and suffer before he wound up at All Souls? Telling others about UUism doesn't have to smack of typical evangelism. It isn't ego, it's not a display of superiority. We're not saying to anyone, you really ought to do it our way or be damned. But if you think it's not your job to inform others that we're here, please reconsider. Pick a moment to speak. Even think about amplifying our presence with social media or advertising. These are critical times. Critical times. In our social justice work, we don't hesitate to assist with food or money or knowledge. If you knew somebody that needed something and you had the name of the organization that could give them that food, that knowledge, that strength, you would tell them. You would tell them. How many times have you run into people who have never heard of Unitarian Universalism? Or if they have a very confused idea of who we are. So let yourself be known. The investigation, the decision is still for others to make, but offer love combined with reason. Tell about service and caring, tolerance and social justice. Share our good news of personal salvation that's available in a way that only each individual can define. In his poem, The Way It Is, William Stafford spoke of a thread that's followed and held, of something we can trust and rely on to keep from getting lost. For many of us, Unitarian Universalism is that thread. But he also wrote, people wonder about what you're pursuing. You have to be willing to explain about the thread because it's hard for others to see. 100 years ago, that thread was shared on a mountaintop in far western North Carolina. And 100 years before that, the Universalist preacher John Murray wrote, "Give the people something of your new vision. You possess only a small light, but uncover it and let it shine. Use it in order to bring more light and understanding to the hearts and minds of all. Give them hope and courage. Give them kindness and everlasting love, a different kind of salvation indeed. Share your thread." Thank you for listening here today. And now, if you will, please stand for our final hymn, Lean on Me, number 1021 in the Teal hymnal.
We all need somebody to lean. One more time, just call. Just call on me, brothers, when you need a friend. We all need somebody to lean on. I just might have a problem that you'll understand. We all need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on. Lean on me when you're not strong, and I'll be your friend. I'll help you carry on, for it won't be long till I'm gonna need somebody to lean on.
Now we have arrived at the part of our service where we must extinguish our chalice flame. I invite Larry to come back and extinguish our chalice for us. This flame has served as a reminder to us that our time together this morning is sacred, a time set apart. In the words of Reverend Brian Kiley, do we need a snuffer? I just blow it out. Okay. The chalice is now extinguished, but its light lives on in the minds and hearts and souls of each of you. So carry that flame with you as you leave this place and share it with those you know, with those you love, and especially with those you have yet to meet. And we're so grateful for your presence this morning. And for those of you who have joined us online, after the postlude, we'll be ending our live streaming service. So thank you to all the online attendees, and we look forward to hosting you again soon. So, the benediction: may we, in the course of our week, be more and more aware of the communities of which we are a part. May we be more and more aware of our individual part in those communities. May we be more and more aware of how those communities co-create our journeys with us, and may we be more and more aware of how we co-create those journeys with them. Go in peace.